Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you'd like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'd also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. While the holidays have come and gone, autistics know this can be a very stressful time of year, especially for non-speakers. That's why I'm excited to have Jack Haynes join this episode to discuss why the holidays can be so stressful to non-speakers and the importance of regulation with their communication regulation partners. Please note for this episode that Caitlin Ballou, Jack's communication regulation partner, will be reading Jack's answers to my questions. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Jack, thanks so much for joining me today. Really excited to talk with you. And I wanted to start off our chat by learning, where does your story in the autistic community begin?
So Jack says, my story in the autistic community truly began when I was given a reliable means to communicate. I was like any other apraxic autistic trapped inside. People assumed I was cognitively impaired. How wrong they were. Being introduced to S2C was the start of my means of truly gaining access to a community. Having friends, connecting with family, and being close to Growing Kids Therapy Center gave me my community.
They were definitely wrong, Jack, that's for sure. And it's always so frustrating for people not to presume intelligence. So, you wrote an article titled CRP, which was about communication regulation partners. I don't think people really understand about the regulation aspect of these partners. So, can you talk about your experience in what a good CRP does to tell you to regulate so you can articulate your thoughts?
So Jack says assisting in regulation can come in many forms. It can be through a calm, steady, confident voice at all times. It can be through knowing my loops and how to coach me out of them. Regulation comes in different forms depending on what is dysregulating a person. It could be trying strategies of proprioceptive input, having fidgets or body engagers available, or feeding the brain with high cognitive materials. My wonderful CRPs vary in their approaches, but all work hard to help me regulate. I cannot spell to express myself if I am not regulated. Imagine that every time you want to talk, you run away instead. That's what it's like when I'm dysregulated and can't spell. My CRPs want to hear my thoughts, so they regulate me to allow me to communicate.
And I think no matter what type of partnership we're talking about, trust to me is such an important aspect of that. So, in what ways would you say CRPs can go about in developing trust with the person they're partnering with?
So Jack says CRPs can best build a trusting relationship with a speller by following the proper steps of S2C and allowing the connection to grow organically. When the time comes to be open and fluent with the speller, it's important to follow and not lead. It is also important to never speak for the speller without permission.
Autonomy. From my understanding, you enjoy sharing important messages through song, and one of those songs you wrote lyrics to was called Silent Night. It was excellent, and where you talked about how the holidays are not filled with cheer for non-speakers, and how family members that are visiting don't know how to treat their non-speaking family members. So, in the first verse of the song, you wrote about how family members often think non speakers are deaf and will yell as a result. What would you like for them to understand about tone of voice, and what would you like them to do instead of yelling?
Jack says, yelling is the opposite of what I said is regulating. For some reason, people think that you should talk loud and slow to someone that you don't think is smart. It is insulting. Talk to everyone at an age-appropriate level and a normal tone.
So, getting back to Silent Night, in the second verse of that song, you talk about family gossip and how that can be harmful to non speakers during the holidays. You wrote, "Silent night just for me. Your family gossip is killing me." So, in what ways do you think the conversation should change so that non speakers would feel like this is a positive experience and they are included?
Jack says, I want family members to realize that we hear everything. We hear you talk about us. We hear you talk about how hard it must be to deal with us and the crap they say about other family members. Talk to us and around us like we understand, because we do. Include us in your conversation, even if we can't respond in the moment.
Because you're definitely listening. Now, in the last verse of Silent Night, you wrote, "Silent night, I can't speak does not mean I'm not smart." So I think, non-speakers, all the non-speakers that I've spoken to here on Autism Stories are some of the most thoughtful and intelligent people that I've had the privilege to talk to. So I'm wondering, are there things that family members of non-speakers can do to allow them to share their intelligence with them during the holidays?
Jack says, I think non-speakers can write letters to their family members ahead of time. Family members can send questions beforehand too. It's also a good idea to set aside time to chat if a CRP is available. For those non-speakers that aren't open and fluent, their parents could share information about apraxia and S2C.
Now, Jack, I read where you talked about the importance of mental and physical wellness and how it can directly affect your performance as an advocate. I was wondering, what things do you do to try to help your mental and physical wellness in your life?
Jack says, I am fortunate to have a supportive family that ensures I stay active, pursue my passions, and give me so many opportunities to spell. I get physical exercise, get art and music classes, join speller groups of various topics, and work on writing projects. Having a community and inclusion is huge for good mental health, especially on days when I'm frustrated with my body. I'd encourage everyone with a non-speaker to find a way to get involved with the community.
And, lastly, Jack, is there anything we didn't talk about that you'd like to discuss?
Jack says, understanding apraxia, regulation, and impulses are so important to help your speller feel accepted. If you need help understanding what I'm talking about, i-asc.org has some great resources. Educating yourself is important, and so many in this community are here to help.
And we'll share that link in the podcast description for this episode. Well, Jack, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you and Caitlin for talking with me.
Thank you so much. Do you want me to drop the board for Jack one more time?
Sure.
Shh. Okay. This had a sense honorary. So next time, feel safe. I want to dance.
Turn around, Jack. Jack says, thank you so much, Doug. You are truly helping spellers like me advocate. All listeners, thank you for taking the time to hear my perspective and advice.
Well, thank you, Jack, for educating so many people. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much to Jack for the conversation. Did you know that Autism Personal Coach provides neurodiversity affirming support by autistics for autistics through our customized coaching? If this is something that you're interested in learning more about, please visit autismpersonalcoach.com for more information. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Autism Stories, and if you did, if you could tell a friend, foe, or anyone you know about it so they could have the same enjoyable and educational experience as you when listening to Autism Stories, it would be very much appreciated. Till next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.